This live broadcast is brought to you by National Prosperity Life and Health Insurance Company, committed to the development of insurance products that help both employers and employees alike to be protected and prepared no matter what circumstances present themselves both now and in the future. Visit National Prosperity at nationalprosperity.com. The Heartland Institute, to discover, develop, and promote free market solutions to social and economic problems. Visit Heartland at heartland.org.
Thank you for allowing me to say a few words to the Goodman Institute dinner. I particularly want to thank you for allowing me to be involved when Governor Greg Abbott is going to get the Sir Anthony Fisher Award for all of his leadership, particularly in terms of COVID in schools. And I want to say just for a minute that I'm a big fan of Governor Abbott, who I think is one of the most effective and most courageous governors in the entire country. And I really believe that honoring him is exactly the right thing to do. I also want to say a brief word for my very good friend, John Goodman. We've been working on health issues for many, many years. He probably has more insight into how to fix the health system, to get back to basic conservative values, to increase freedom for the individual, to lower cost through better care with better outcomes than anyone else I've ever worked with. So to be allowed to talk to the Goodman Institute about John Goodman is really a great honor. Finally, I just want to say for a brief moment that you have three of my really good friends there. Pete Sessions, Congressman, who is very close to my wife, Callista. They worked on the same corridor in the Longworth building, and they got to know each other. And she just loves Pete, and I think Pete's a great congressional leader. I'm delighted that he's there and that he's being helpful. Chip Roy, who has done a great job, and Nan Hayworth. The three of them are really key leaders now in developing a health agenda for the Congress. And as we take over next year, which after the election results this year, I'm sure we will, I think they're going to do a great job in helping develop the health agenda so we have better outcomes with better care at lower cost. And that ought to be what we offer as a Republican and a conservative approach to the whole system of health. Thank you for letting me share this with you.
Gentlemen, I'd like to bring up Brent Ryan, who is going to present an award to Governor Greg Abbott. And Brent, come on up. Let's have a hand for him. He's the gentleman I'm talking about right here. He is the gentleman. So as we listen to his remarks, again, I want to keep the energy high. I know you're still enjoying dinner, which is okay. Keep in mind that Brent's going to have some remarks, and of course, our governor of the great state of Texas, Greg Abbott, will also. Brent, welcome. Here.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that very much. You know, it's great to be here this evening with so many friends. It's also great to see Congressman Pete Sessions. Brother, good to see you. Glad to be in your presence tonight. It's good to be here with everyone. I want to tell you a little bit about the award that we're going to present to tonight's honoree. Sir Anthony Fisher was a British businessman who founded the Institute for Economic Affairs in London. That organization became the source of many reforms that were implemented by British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Based upon that highly successful experiment, Fisher went on around the world establishing as many as 36 different think tanks. The result was a network of organizations that each worked together, learned from each other, and promoted free market ideas, including privatization, deregulation, and my personal favorite, low taxes. Yeah, we can pause for applause there for sure. The Anthony Fisher Award is presented to an individual who exemplifies, through words and deeds, the values Anthony Fisher stood for, and who shares his vision that a good society is one with free individuals, free markets, and limited government. Governor Greg Abbott is receiving the Anthony Fisher Award tonight in recognition of his commendable efforts to protect individual rights in Texas. These include the right to work, the right to learn, and the right to vote. We are so fortunate to be in the great state of Texas. And if you didn't know that before the pandemic, you know it now. During the pandemic, Governor Abbott resisted the prolonged lockdown practices of many other states. And what is our reward, Governor? The booming Texas economy. Under his leadership, Texas has been ranked the #1 place to do business for 16 years, won the Governor's Cup and the Gold Shovel Award for the 9th year in a row. Get this. In 2020 alone, Texas received over 781 corporate facility projects, more than double the next nearest state, which was Ohio. During his tenure, Texas has added over 1 million new jobs. He has encouraged our schools to open with a minimum of restrictions so that kids can keep learning and attending. Because of his leadership, voting reforms in Texas have made it easier to vote, but harder to cheat. Can I get an amen to that? So, Governor, I can't think of anyone more deserving of this award, and we are so honored to present it to you tonight. Please join me in recognizing Governor Greg Abbott.
Howdy. We got any mics? Not feeling the mic. Outstanding. Well, give it up for Brent Ryan for such an outstanding introduction. You know, Brent really is the epitome of what entrepreneurship is all about. He's really the epitome of why so many people gather at an event like this, why Texas is such a magnet for people across the country as well as across the entire world. Texas is a place where entrepreneurs can come and they can live without government mandates telling them what to do, letting them live their own lives. And along those lines, repeating tonight is to give you an idea of what my day looks like. I do about 2 or 3 events every day. And I've been doing that for the past 6 months. And there has not been an event yet in which we did not have somebody who falls into the category of what I'm about to say. Every event I go to, there is somebody here in Texas who recently moved from California. And I met a woman earlier I was talking to back here, but she's not right. She is right there. I'm sorry, you're over here. So you're a typical American who's fled oppression, who has fled a dictatorship and now live in the land of freedom. Welcome to the great state of Texas. She's been here for 2 years. Stand up one last time. Stand up. She's been here for 2 years, and she promised she will continue to vote the same color as the top that she's wearing right now, and that's bright red. So, Brent, thank you again, and I got to say thank you to my friend John Goodman. John, thank you for your work at the Institute, but thank you for this award tonight, but thank you for being you. I'm going to go back down through memory lane about something you may or may not recall, but I want people here to know that this is a man that I've known for 20 years as of this year. We first met in 2001 when I was then beginning my first campaign to run for Attorney General in the state of Texas. You may or may not recall that we met in your office, and the person who took me there was Dan Cook, a friend of yours and a friend of all of ours. Dan is not with us anymore, but his incredible wife and son are with us here tonight. Gail, where are you? Thank you all very much. Thanks to the Cook family for your legacy of leadership yourselves and everything you've done. But that was when I first got to know John and everything that he was working for. And of course, I've known two of your participants who will be talking later on. One is Chip Roy, and the other is Representative Sessions. I met tonight your other participant, which is Nan Hayworth. Nan, where are you? But so Nan is an example, because second to California in the number of escapees from seemingly communism is New York. And Nan is from New York. She does not know it yet, but she is not going back home. She's staying in freedom. She's going to go to the airport. She's going to reach the threshold of that plane. She's going to put her arms up, and her husband is just not going to be able to push her across. She's going to stay in the land of freedom. And that is what Texas is all about. That's what this award is all about. And John, I want to thank you and the Institute for giving me this award, because what I work for you, people ask, what do you do as governor? The main thing that I do and can do and must do is be a warrior for freedom every single day. When we do that, we keep Texas the best state of the United States of America. So I was reading about the award, and I may be echoing exactly what Brent just said earlier, but in reading about the Sir Anthony Fisher Award, it honors excellence in promoting entrepreneurship, limited government, individual liberty, and free enterprise. It sounds like this award was made for Texas, because that is what Texas is and stands for. So Brent gave you a sampling of the ways in which Texas lives up to those concepts. He talked about how Texas had been ranked #1 as the #1 state in America for the best state for doing business. He said for 16 years, actually now it is 17 years in a row, Texas has been ranked the #1 state for doing business in the United States. He mentioned the receipt of this cup is called the Governor's Cup. The Governor's Cup goes to the state that ranks #1 in the United States for the most economic development projects as defined by capital investment plus new jobs. Texas has won the Governor's Cup every single year that I have been governor of Texas. To dig into a few details, Texas has been the #1 state in the United States for exports for 19 years in a row. And a fact that surprises some people, Texas has been the #1 state in the United States for exporting technology for 8 years in a row. Not California, not New York, but it's Texas that ranks #1 for exporting technology. In fact, our economy is growing so strong, so powerfully, we even climbed the international rankings during the year of COVID. Before COVID struck, if Texas were its own country, we would have had the 10th largest economy in the entire world. That's not true tonight, because as we gather tonight, Texas now has the 9th largest economy in the entire world. I know you're curious. It was Brazil that we passed. And if you look at the way things are going, they're not going to catch us. So Texas had to put all this in context. Texas has a larger economy than the economy of Brazil. We're larger than our two neighbors of Mexico and Canada. We're larger than the economy of Australia. And the Texas economy is even larger than the economy of Russia. And that makes me more powerful than Putin. You know, Brent mentioned that one reason why I won this is because Texas is a right-to-work state. Well, one reason why Texas excels at business is because we are a right-to-work state. We were a right-to-work state before COVID. We remained a right-to-work state during COVID. Unlike lockdown states, Texas remained open during the pandemic, with a majority of our businesses never closing down. And Texas was one of the first states to open 100%. The Texas approach has paid big dividends. I'm going to tell you about them. I'm going to mention two broad concepts as the dividends that we have seen from the approach that we took. Because understand our focus, obviously our focus during a pandemic, is to focus on the healthcare needs of the people who are populace. At the same time, however, it was important to make sure that we looked after the livelihoods of our fellow Texans. Too many people chose one or the other. You don't have to compromise one for the other. You can both support lives and promote health while at the same time promoting livelihoods. So people can go to work, so they're going to earn the money to pay their bills and keep their businesses open and things like that. By focusing on doing both, these are the rewards that we have reaped. Fortune 500 companies have continued to flock to Texas in an accelerated pace during the time of COVID. I'll give you just a few examples. The most prolific is Tesla. So it was the second full month of COVID in Texas. The first full month of COVID in Texas was March of 2020. The second full month of COVID obviously was April of 2020. It was in April of 2020 when Elon Musk reached out and contacted me and said, Abbott, I cannot stay in California anymore. The shutdown in California was unbearable, on top of all the other regulations and taxations that he was dealing with there. And so from April through June, we hammered out the details. And then we met in the governor's office and we agreed upon him coming to Texas to build the Gigafactory. He had one thing in mind. Anyone who knows Elon knows he is a person with a need for speed. He said he wanted to make sure that before the end of the next year, which was 2021, his factory was going to be complete and they would be rolling Teslas off of the Gigafactory. He said that would take at a minimum 5 years, probably 10 years to be able to achieve in California. We met and ended the deal in June of 2020. If you fly into Austin, Texas, into ABIA, and the airport if you're flying southward, you'll look out to your left-hand side from the airport, a massive factory, which the exterior is already complete. And Elon was on TV the other day announcing that trucks would be rolling off of the Gigafactory before the end of this year. That is something that only happens in Texas because we don't have the regulations that hamper businesses. But listen, it's more than just Tesla. There's a lot that happened right here. In fact, I should go on too fast. So first on Tesla, he talked about the Gigafactory. Then when we were in my office, we were talking about his bigger vision of what he really wanted to achieve. And I'm not going to tell you the fullness of the bigger vision. I will tell you this, however. His announcement last month was a step toward his fuller vision. The first announcement back in June of last year was that he was going to be opening the Gigafactory in Austin, Texas. The second step was announced last month when he said that the headquarters for Tesla was moving to Texas. And there you go. But that is a replication, however, of what we've seen here in the Dallas area. It was during the COVID pandemic that the Charles Schwab headquarters broke ground and opened up their headquarters here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Fortune 500 companies like CBRE and AECOM moved their headquarters to Dallas, Texas during the pandemic. In fact, altogether, there were 45 headquarter relocations to the DFW area during the course of the pandemic. People are choosing freedom in the DFW area because they know that is the right pathway for them. The second dividend that's paid is that Texas, because we have been open, because we have all these jobs that are being created, Texas is leading America's economic recovery. Proof of that is the most recent jobs report, which is typically a month behind the federal jobs report for the states. So the last state monthly jobs report was for the month of September. And in the month of September, the state in the United States that created more jobs than any other state was the great state of Texas. In just the month of September alone, There were more than 95,000 new jobs created, which puts us on a pathway to create a tremendous number of jobs. I do, however, want to emphasize one thing, and that is I gave you a number, the number of jobs, and some statistics and things like that, but we need to understand this is far more than statistics. These are paychecks that families need, and they're far more than paychecks, because a job provides something more than just an economic reward. A job provides dignity. A job provides a sense of self-respect. We need to cherish and applaud people who work in the Lone Star State and across the United States who drive the economic engine of the entire globe. Now, as Brent was talking, he also mentioned about schools, and Texas was one of the first states to open up our schools. But early on, we were able to recognize limitations of things like virtual learning. Kids need to be in classrooms with their teacher. They need to see their teacher's smiling face, which, by the way, is another reason why I issued that executive order prohibiting a mask mandate in schools, because children need to see the smile of their teacher to respond to that teacher's smile. However, at the same time, during COVID, and perhaps because of COVID, because so many kids were learning a whole lot more at home than they had before, parents learned a whole lot more about what their children were being exposed to. And it was during the time of COVID that we learned here, even in Texas, that children in Texas were being taught critical race theory. Let's be clear. The job of schools is to educate our children, not to indoctrinate our children. And that's why this past regular session, plus in a special session, we passed a ban on the use or teaching of critical race theory in every grade, in every subject, in every Texas public school, making Texas have the strongest ban on critical race theory of any state in the United States of America. Brent also mentioned about protecting the right to vote, and that means going and cast your vote. And he talked about the law that we passed, the election integrity law. You know, if you paid attention to what was going on during the regular session, you know that this was a priority of mine that I declared at my State of the State address, that we must pass election integrity reform in the state of Texas. And we got down to the last day of the regular session, to the 1 yard line of having everything concluded. And that is the time when the Democrats broke quorum and they ran off to Washington, D.C. with absolutely nothing more than a 12-pack of Miller Lite. But I told them that I would call special session after special session until we passed election integrity in Texas, and that is exactly what we did. So let me share with you just a few details real quick, especially while I have a captive media here. I want them to know one aspect about this because it clarifies some of the false information that's been spouted about what election integrity in Texas did do. The fact is, the law that we passed did make it easier than ever before for people to go cast a vote. It's easier because we added more hours during early voting, which, by the way, Texas has 12 days of early voting, and we made it easier even on election day for people to go vote. By comparison, the state of, let's say, Delaware, where President Biden is from, has 0 days of early voting. The state of New York has fewer days of early voting than the Lone Star State. And yet, there were some people in the state of Texas saying that because of the law we passed, it made it impossible for people of color or anybody to be able to go cast a vote. That is a falsehood disproven by the facts of the case. It is easier to vote than it's ever been before, with 2 exceptions. There are 2 prolific ways that even Democrats agree are ways in which it is easy to cheat. One is through mail-in ballots. And so we cracked down on the way that mail-in ballots operate to make sure that we would eliminate the cheating. The other is through what's called ballot harvesting. Ballot harvesting is where you have people go out and they may aggregate, it could be 10 or 20, it could be 100 or 1,000 ballots that could be taken from someone or manufactured themselves, and they submit those ballots falsely. And for anybody who thinks that ballot harvesting may not be a serious crime, they need to listen and read what was written in a judicial opinion by a judge appointed by Barack Obama. Barack Obama appointed a federal district judge in Corpus Christi, Texas, who heard the voter case with the voter ID law Texas passed in her court. In her opinion, she wrote a sentence that says this: voter fraud occurs, quote, in abundance in Texas as it concerns ballot harvesting. So anybody says, well, there's not massive voter fraud, or there's only not enough to overturn an election, whatever the case may be, we have a federal judge appointed by Barack Obama who wrote an opinion: voter fraud occurs in abundance in Texas as it concerns ballot harvesting. And that's why we made it a felony for anybody to be involved in ballot harvesting in Texas. So what I'm about to mention to you was not one of the reasons why I got this award. However, I will have tomatoes thrown at me if I do not tell you about this issue. Texas is stepping up in doing the federal government's job by Texas doing its own job to secure our border. I've served either as Attorney General or as Governor now under 4 presidents: Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden. Biden's predecessors all did what they could to secure the border. Barack Obama actually sent back, repatriated more people than any other president. He didn't want to campaign on it and tell people about it because it would be bad for his base, but he actually did it. What Biden has imposed is true, unequivocal, open border policies. He's hamstrung ICE. He's hamstrung the Border Patrol. He's hamstrung any pretense about securing our border or stopping people from coming across the border. As a result, Texas is having to step up and do everything we can to do their job. As we gather for dinner tonight, there are more than 7,500 National Guard and Texas Department of Public Safety officers patrolling the border, making sure they do all they can to help secure our border. You probably have seen these stories about caravans that are working their way through Mexico headed toward the United States. And they are in the process right now of trying to make a choice about which state they're going to go to. And as a result, I'm going to make it clear to them. That's why we're laying down tonight, today, tomorrow, etc., mile after mile after mile of razor wire on the border, making it clear it's going to be dangerous if you come across the border. We have these massive containers that you see on 18-wheelers on ships. They're about the size of that curtain over there. We're laying down these massive 18-wheelers as barriers along the border. We're putting armed vehicles, whether it be National Guard or DPS vehicles, side by side by side to form a steel barrier to prevent people from coming across the border. We're doing whatever humanly is possible to make sure that we do secure our border. And yes, at the same time we're doing all that, Texas is building its own border wall. So the status of this is we made the command to the Texas Facilities Commission in the summertime that they are charged with the duty of building the border wall. They immediately started talking to people who would serve as what's called the program manager, which is like a general contractor. They're already signed up. The program manager has been going through a lot of requests for proposals, and all of those will be announced later on this month. Bottom line is this. The Texas Facilities Commission tells me this, and that is they're working at such a fast pace. We began this summer. We appropriated $1 billion for it. And by the way, another $54 million has been donated by the public who wants to help out. By the way, the address to do that is borderwall.texas.gov. Borderwall.texas.gov in case you want to donate to building our border wall. The point is this, however, and that as we begin this process in June, and I am told parts of that border wall will be up before the end of this year, before the end of next month. We are getting that wall up. So in closing, let me just mention two things. One is I want to express my gratitude to John Goodman and to the Goodman Institute for all that you all do at this institute to set the course for the United States of America, for a healthier and more prosperous future for our country. I want to thank everybody here for being engaged and involved and being such a strong voice yourself for the cause of freedom. Also want to leave you with this parting thought. If you recall, in the beginning of my remarks, I told you I do about 2 or 3 events a day. About a month ago, I was doing an event in Paris, Texas. Not Paris, France, but Paris, Texas. For those who may be from California and don't know where Paris, Texas is from, it's on the Red River in northeast Texas. And the community is just a few thousand people. I flew into a small airport in town and took the first roadway in toward town. It's just a 2-lane road, and it's a neighborhood. And immediately something stood out, because each house you passed, whether it be on the right or on the left, with each house that you passed, you saw the very same thing. There was an American flag flying out in front of that house. These were true patriots. And then you hit the main road and you turn left and go toward downtown Paris, Texas, which is only a little bit larger than the room we're in tonight. But Paris, Texas is a traditional old Texas town that has a town square in it. And as we went through the town square, every single storefront in that town square had an American flag flying. The point is this: there are a lot of people in Paris, Texas who love America. The people in this room love America. People across this country and in our state, they love America. And candidly, as I talk to my fellow Texans, I find that some of our fellow Texans may even love Texas more than they love our country. But the key point, and one reason why we need institutes like this, is because there are also people in this state who hate America, who despise Texas for the way that it is. We, all of us in this room, we have a collective obligation to ensure that those who hate America do not take America from its foundations and from being the premier country in the history of the entire world. We must fight together for the future of the United States of America and for the great state of Texas, fighting for the freedom that this institute stands for. And when we do that, we will keep Texas the premier state in the greatest country in the history of the world. Thank you all. God bless you all. God bless America, and God bless the great state of Texas.
All right, thank you, Governor Abbott. I tell you, Governor, before you go, I want to give you one piece of advice: bookshelves. You're going to need them for all those plaques and Texas #1, all those awards. You're going to need some more bookshelves. Tell your guys to get them up ASAP. Okay, there you go. There you go, sir. Get those up. Well, as we're going to reconfigure our stage, Governor Abbott, I can't think of a more inspirational way to kind of move us into our panel discussion. I hope as we move things out, I want to, and please keep eating your dinner. I know some of you paused to do that, and it's great food. We don't want to see it heading on to the garbage disposal. So please, I know it might be a little tepid, but please continue eating and enjoying the dinner. Is everyone enjoying the night so far? Is everyone doing that? Great. Are we keeping it high energy? This table is. What about that table? What about this? Are we keeping it high energy? Excellent. Couple of things. One other thing as we reconfigure this, talking about Tesla. Can you imagine the governor of California getting that phone call? Hey, I'm packing up. Hey, we're leaving. Really? Why? And then, of course, the contrasting call to Governor Abbott. And what I love about that, what I love about Tesla, what I love about the company coming down and the gigafactories, every one of those employees is going to represent a family. They're going to have a washer, they're going to have a dryer, they're going to have a refrigerator, they're going to have kids in Little League, they're going to have bicycles riding up and down the street, they're going to have a car, they're going to go for oil changes, they're going to have a new roof put on their house, they're going to have life insurance, they're going to have homeowners insurance, they're going to have all those things that aren't even on the board yet being measured. They're not even being measured, but they're going to be there too, and it's going to make Texas even higher. What's number 8? Does anyone know number 8? Has anyone looked that up? Who do we have to pass? We passed Brazil. Anyone know what number 8 is? I meant to ask Governor Abbott. Oh, well. What is it? Germany. Nan says Germany. You know what, Nan? I'm guessing you're right. I'm just going to put my money on Nan on that one. So we're ready to go. Ladies and gentlemen, the namesake that we're all here for, his name's on the program. We ought to know about it. He's been coming up with good ideas and batting them around, smart people like you and other people, taking them to the leaders of this country and getting them in place and getting them situated. Ladies and gentlemen, no further ado, and to introduce our panel is going to be Dr. John Goodman.
A lot of you know that I've been involved in health policy for 40 years. And Newt Gingrich will tell you that healthcare is the most complicated public policy issue there is. There is no other public policy issue that even comes close. And yet at the same time, it's the issue in which we all care about. It's impossible not to care about the healthcare system. And yet no one really understands our healthcare system. And by that I mean that everybody who's in it knows something about his own problems. You talk to any doctor and he'll tell you what his or her frustrations are, but they don't understand what the employers are doing or what the insurance companies are doing or the government. And that's true of everybody. They all know their small part of the puzzle. They don't understand the total puzzle. Now you might think that members of Congress have a self-interest in understanding the healthcare system, but there are two big problems. One problem is it's a $3.5 trillion industry. And if you're a member of Congress, and we can ask them tonight to confirm this, if you're a member of Congress, when Congress is in session, every day of the week someone is knocking on your door wanting your help to get their share of the $3.5 trillion a little bit larger. All of the time you're hearing the special interest view of healthcare, which gives you a very distorted picture of how the system is really working. The other problem is when people go to Washington, they very quickly discover something that they may already have known, but if they didn't know it, they learn it very quickly, and that is a member of Congress never has to know more about an issue than the voters know. So the voters' knowledge, the voters' awareness of any issue, that's the ceiling of what a member of Congress really has to know. And only a few people are going to reach much beyond that level. I only know 3 people in the House of Representatives today that I think have a really good grasp on healthcare, and you've got 2 of them here tonight. Sadly, there are so many others that don't. Now, at our institute, we've had a lot of successes, and the most important success is the health savings account. And in the early 1990s, I went to Washington with the idea, and I only had help from one other special interest, and that was Pat Rooney, who was chairman of a small insurance company in Indianapolis. And everybody else in Washington was against us. The big insurance companies were against us, the AMA was against us, the Business Roundtable was against us, the drug companies, the hospitals, you name it, they were not on our side. The conservative think tanks, they were either neutral or against us. Now, it's really hard to get something done when everybody in Washington is either against you or indifferent, but we succeeded. And today, 30 million people have a health savings account. Amazing. And I've often thought, if every time those 30 million people use their health savings accounts, they could just donate a penny to the Goodman Institute, we wouldn't have any financial worries. We've had some setbacks. I was probably more responsible than any other person for John McCain's health plan. John McCain's health plan is based on a simple idea. Let's take all of the spending subsidies. Let's take all the tax subsidies. Take all of the federal government's involvement in the system. Take all that money, divide it up, and give each individual, each family, a certain portion of it, and let the market work. So today, a family of 4 would get, say, $8,000 or $10,000, and that would be their tax credit, and that would be their help from the government, and then we would let the market work. Subsequently, we have, with Pete Sessions and Bill Cassidy, a bill in Congress that was an update, and a much better, by the way, and more thorough version of that. The problem with John McCain is he did not understand his own health care plan. And when people questioned him about it, he couldn't explain it very well. Whereas over on the other side, the Obama people spent $90 million demagoguing this one issue. One issue, $90 million. Well, when Obama got to the White House, his health policy advisors said, you know, Mr. President, we really didn't think very carefully about health care. You probably should endorse the John McCain health plan. And they said, well, why should we do that? Well, because it's a pretty good plan, better than anything we've been advocating. And then we would have bipartisan health reform, and it would have been really good health reform. But then Axelrod and the political people said, well, look, we just spent $90 million demagoguing this idea. How can we turn around and say, oh, today we really like it? And so we got Obamacare instead. Last year, in the election, the RNCC, which is the organization that helps out Republican candidates for the House of Representatives, they told all the Republican candidates not to talk about health care. And they said, if health care comes up, switch the topic as quickly as possible. That's the advice. And I see Jenny Collins here, and she nodding her head. That's what they told you, right? And that's the advice they were giving the Republican Party is giving Republican candidates during the election. Now, while they were giving that advice, if you were a family of 4 and you had to purchase insurance in the individual market, not getting it from an employer, and you didn't get any subsidy from the government, if you add together the average premium last year with the average deductible, that family had to spend $25,000 before they got any benefit at all from their health insurance plan. Most people don't consider that real health insurance. And then what kind of plan did they get? Well, in city after city, state after state, these plans are very narrow. They exclude the best doctors and the best hospitals. So right here in Dallas, Texas, you cannot buy individual insurance on your own that gets you into UT Southwestern, one of the premier medical centers in the whole world. In the whole state of Texas, you cannot buy individual insurance that gets you into MD Anderson Cancer Center down in Houston. And this is true all over the country. Now, that's the reality, and that's what our Republican candidates were being advised. And the only question I have is, why, when they do polls of voters, the voters tell us they trust Democrats more than Republicans on health care? And here's something I'm embarrassed to admit. In the whole 40 years, until last fall, I didn't really start thinking about the answer to that question. You have lousy health care out there. It's got all kinds of things wrong with it. Why are the voters saying we trust these Democrats more than these Republicans? And the answer, I decided, was because Democrats follow certain rules in talking about health care that Republicans ignore. And you can find these rules at my website, and I'm just going to tell you about the first and most important one here tonight. Democrats talk about benefits, not how they're going to produce the benefits, and Republicans are the other way around. So when Bernie Sanders tells you he wants Medicare for all, you hear that, and what do you think? You're going to get pretty good health care. You're not going to have to pay very much for it. And Bernie Sanders never gets trapped into a long discussion about how he would get 160 million people out of their employer plans, which they like, over into Medicare. If he started doing that, he would lose everybody very, very quickly. What's happened over on the Republican side? Well, we spent 10 years trying to repeal Obamacare, but what was that going to mean for the average voter? Well, the voter didn't know, and Republicans didn't tell them. And so we spent a lot of time talking about the how-to, not how it's going to affect people. Then we almost passed a replacement for Obamacare, and what did it do? It was going to block grant money from the federal government to the states. So if you have cancer, you have diabetes, what does that mean for you? Well, you have no idea what it means for you, and the Republican Party never told you. So what I have done for the last 12 months, working with the Heritage Foundation, Republican Study Committee, and Newt Gingrich himself, is I have said, well, why don't we steal those ideas from the Democrats and propose a health care reform that liberates the market, frees people, and relies on free market competition. And so we're doing that. And we have succeeded in pulling about 70 think tanks and activist organizations together. And by the way, this is a real accomplishment because these folks have been fighting with each other for 30 years. And I've been fighting with a lot of them for 30 years. But the Heritage Foundation agreed to come along, and now we're sort of getting all these people together. They've agreed on a very complicated and extensive set of public policy changes. And now what I'm trying to teach them is you need to talk about healthcare in the right way. You need to talk about healthcare the way Democrats talk about healthcare. And by the way, we're not partisan. I think I need to stress that. We talk to Democrats and we talk to Republicans, and we hope everybody hears our message. But we need healthcare reform that not only works, but we need to learn how to talk about it. And you would be amazed at how difficult it has been for me to get my think tank colleagues in the other places, the other healthcare policy wonks. They're so ingrained in thinking, wanting to tell you how it's going to work, that they forget to tell you how it's going to be good for you. All right, this is our goal for the next 12 months to see if we can get politicians, get think tanks, get members of Congress to change how they talk about health care, and we'll see how well we do. But let me just say I appreciate all the help we get from people in this room, because we're talking about a monumental task. We're not talking about something that's easy. Thank you all for your help. I guess I need to welcome Nan Hayworth and Pete Sessions and Chip Roy up here. I know you all know Pete, you all know Chip. Nan Hayworth was a congresswoman from New York. It's a district right above New York City. She's a medical doctor. She's a member of the board of the Goodman Institute. And we rely on her a lot at the Goodman Institute. And she knows a lot about health care. And she promised to ask some really tough questions of these guys. I may lead it off myself, however, and then we'll shift to her.
Well, thank you. I'm so sorry I'm obscuring your view of Chip Roy for just a moment, but I just wanted to mention, apropos of John's wonderful comments, that in your program for tonight, you actually do have the healthcare contract with America, and we're going to talk quite a bit more about that, I'm sure. I just have been given the honor of introducing Representatives Chip Roy and Pete Sessions. I'm going to start with Representative Roy, who is a former federal prosecutor, top advisor to many prominent Texas elected officials, chief of staff to Ted Cruz, who needs no introduction, obviously, staff director for Senator Cornyn's leadership office, senior counsel to the Senate Judiciary Committee, first assistant attorney general in Texas under Ken Paxton, senior advisor to then Governor Perry. The list goes on and on. Congressman Roy is now on the Judiciary and Veterans Affairs committees in the House, and his district stretches from South Austin through the Hill Country to downtown San Antonio. That is heaven on earth. And saying that as someone who's visited there and, yes, is stuck in New York. Pete Sessions, I always said from 2009 onward, I would crawl across broken glass for this man. He is the one, he was the chairman of our National Republican Congressional Committee when I was among 90 new freshmen. We eventually went down to 87 thanks to recounts, but 87 new freshmen. That was a record from what, the 1930s, Pete? And it was Pete Sessions who drove that wave. Our chairman, he will always be our chairman. No one will ever outperform Pete Sessions, but Pete himself obviously is something of a lifer for the state of Texas in Congress, and we are all blessed for it. Born and raised in Waco, Eagle Scout, which will surprise no one, and was first elected to the House in 1996, and then served through 2019, and, you know, praise the Lord, reelected now. So now you are the chairman. Are you still the chairman of Rules?
No,
Pete?
no, we're in the minority.
Oh, that's right. I mean, ranking member. Forgive me. Are you the ranker?
6 years chairman.
Yeah, 6 years chairman of the House Rules Committee, and still on the Rules Committee now, Pete? Are you?
And Chip, you have a microphone.
Oh yeah, you all.
You want to make sure these work? Is that what you, okay.
Are you the ranking member now?
1, 2, 3. No, I'm the
say?
senior member from Texas in Financial Services.
Oh, well, House Financial Services Committee. And I'm sorry, Pete, I didn't see that on this sheet, but thank you for being here. Representatives Roy and Sessions, and of course, Dr. Goodman. We'll get started.
All right, let's jump right in. Democrats have this massive social spending bill. Will it pass the House? Will it pass the Senate? And if it gets signed into law, will that help Democrats or will that help Republicans?
We're reminding them every time I'm on Newsmax or Fox or anything else that we won 63 net seats, as we heard 87 new members of Congress in 2010, using exactly the same platform that the Democrats used then, they are using now. And they know that. That did not stop them last time. They were insistent upon doing it, and it cost them. The bottom line is that they've doubled down on their agenda. They do not intend to back off. They're going to do it. It is up to us to beat them. But I believe that what is occurring last Tuesday had a lot to do with that. Thank you. Great job, America. But the bottom, yes. But the bottom line is that we still have to remember we have 2 senators that we need to be very careful with, and it's Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. We need them. And one would say, well, why not just invite them to our own party? Well, that's been done. They are going to hold the position that they've got, but we need to get well into next year. So I don't believe they'll get it. If you look at it one way, we sold money as the evil part of what they did. But actually, it's the, quote, pay-fors, because the pay-fors are the tax increases that will gut small business, free enterprise, and kill the goose that laid the golden egg. And that is still their prize. So if they can get at that, they're going to do that. That's my take. We've got to hope that it would pass the House even tomorrow. But the problem is that the longer we go into this debt limit, which is December 3rd, I think we're going to help ourselves a lot. So we kind of need to hold our breath till December 3rd. $5,000 billion is a lot of money for a debt limit increase.
Yeah, I'll just add, and first of all, thanks for having us here, and thanks for putting this on. Thank you all for being here. I would just add that I think the odds of it passing went up a little bit on Friday night. I'm not going to dwell on the negative. We're going to talk about the positive. But being there on the floor of the House of Representatives at midnight when 13 Republicans helped Nancy Pelosi didn't help our game. So we're going to have to get back on our horse and move on offense. And to me, that means highlighting what's in this bill. It has a 900% increase in OSHA fines for the government to be able to go after small businesses for not vaccinating their employees. It has an amnesty. It has a massive expansion of Medicare, a massive expansion of Medicaid, a massive expansion of Obamacare subsidies. It has universal family leave. I could go on and on and on, but it is a massive expansion of a social safety net that they want to be able to sell and say, they're going to go cut a deal and say, okay, well, Manchin's saved the world by making it $1.5 trillion. Well, Well, instead of 3.5 trillion, but the fact is, and he even said it, is like, well, no, this is just a down payment. All you've done is scale back the initial dollars, said it's for a couple of years, but they've laid the groundwork, and that's what they do. They move the Overton window. They move the needle by setting these things in place, and then Republicans just go, oh, well, you know, we made it a little bit better, but then they just moved the whole needle. So we've got to keep reminding the American people what it is they didn't want to see in these things. And it's the same energy that happened in Virginia, where parents rose up, where the people rose up and said they didn't want what they were seeing, that we need to put in place to make sure the American people know what's in this bill and keep the heat up on Democrats so that they can have to own what's actually in the bill.
Do either of you ever talk to your Democratic colleagues, maybe in the hall or in the men's room, urinal to urinal or whatever? I mean, you ever ask them, what do you really think of Joe Biden? What do you really think of this spending bill? Or is there just no conversation?
Well, I think the conversation that most older members have, who I know very, very well, and have regular conversation with them. By the way, a bunch of senior Democrats are leaving. They are leaving. They not only see what's ahead, they don't like the way they're treated in their own party. I think that the conversation is about their left, not about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is doing things, and they are forced many times to do things, but it is what their party is forcing, and it's that double down, John. It's that they are going to stay after this agenda. So I spoke to a member from California, and he said we're going to lose badly. That reality has clicked in on them, but they are still committed. I mean, comrade, you got to understand, they are committed to this, but the senior guys will, as we get to December, it always happens, these guys will start dropping like flies as soon as December gets done.
One of my good friends is a guy named Dean Phillips from Minnesota. We passed the PPP Flexibility Act last summer together, bipartisan backbencher Republican. We were able to get that through. And Dean tweeted out on Wednesday after the debacle for them, the great day for us on Tuesday, he tweeted out, maybe Democrats should be listening more and talking less today. And I think that was a glimpse into that wing of the party. Abigail Spanberger from Richmond, who lost her district, Youngkin won by 10 points. Okay, so Abigail's a Democrat. Youngkin won it by 10 points. And she tweeted out something in the zip code of, you know, we didn't elect Biden to be FDR. We elected him to be normal. Now that was her phraseology. I'm not adopting it. I'm just saying that's where she's coming from. But I'll tell you one funny thing is on Friday night, so I forced a late night vote at midnight after the 13 GOP helped to get that across the finish line. I texted Alexandria, AOC, because the squad had voted no. So I forced a second vote on it, and then they voted yes. And I texted her and I said, hey, I caused another bite at this apple and y'all walk? She wrote back, well, maybe your friends shouldn't have voted yes. Now they got to eat it. I said, well, I kind of want them to have to eat it, and y'all aren't helping. And I said, the whole point of a second vote is to force them to eat it, else y'all never really wanted to kill it. No response. They didn't want to kill it. They just wanted the no vote. Now they can go back to their base and they say they got the no vote. And now they can go out and say, look at us. We were out there advancing liberal policies. They didn't care about the actual policy. They moved the Overton window. That's good. I'm going to keep saying that. They moved the needle. They got a big transportation bill that's not really transportation. It has $600 billion over and above your normal transportation dollars that is chock full of expansion of the Department of Transportation and an expansion of the Green New Deal. And they knew it. They were just moving the needle.
Okay, it looked to me from afar that when the Democrats retook the Congress, that they already had their bills written, they had their agenda ahead of them. They didn't even have to have hearings because they already knew what they wanted to do. So now I'm going to ask you a question about Republicans. I'm going to hope that the answer is no. But is it possible that if the Republicans retake the House or retake the Senate, you guys don't have an agenda, you don't have the bills written, you don't have a game plan? Is that possible?
You know, I think what's possible is that we do have actual bills. Theoretically, that's the plan. But I will remind us that when President Trump got elected, we were sure we were going to do away with Obamacare. And that was never going to be achieved because of the way that people actually didn't understand what they were doing. So we've got to understand that it's going to actually, we're going to have to grow some adult ideas about what we're trying to do and what we're trying to fix, John. And of course, you and I work so long, as is John T. Gill, Dr. Gill, and others in this room, about trying to make sure that we put a competitive package against Obamacare rather than trying to kill it and watch people run to it. We have to recognize that we will not have a president that will help us in 2 years. And that alone will diminish people's desire to go out and talk about hard things. We will want to talk about things that we need to get done, but not getting done. That's just my opinion. I've watched it for too many years. We will have someone like, we had Barack Obama. We decided, myself, I was chairman of the committee, and Boehner, that we were going to hit them on money. We knew we needed to move back the $870 billion. We didn't take on Obamacare. We needed, because we knew he wouldn't sign it, go find the things that you can win on and force that president. Newt Gingrich did this with a guy named Bill Clinton, and we won. So I would say to you that everybody wants this broad thing of our answer, but we need to find, in my opinion, where we want to win and sell that win and then do it and force the president, like we did Obama when the government got shut down, when he came at us and said sequestration. John Boehner did not want to do it. I said, John, what the hell? It's a weapon. We need a weapon. And we got it. By the way, people still think sequestration is what harmed everybody. I had a military guy just yesterday just come after me. I said, we never even invoked sequestration. It was the CR that hurt you. But we have to go for the win, not the policy. And I think we know where that is. It will be spending. And we can win that. My personal opinion.
So, you know, that's the big question. And what I would say is this is a slightly, different environment, obviously, than we had in January of 17 for the reasons Pete just talked about, right? If we are blessed to be put back in power in the January of 2023 in the House and or the Senate's a thinner ability to win seats there probably than the House, then we've got, in essence, 2 years to figure out an agenda to then build for a work for a presidential win and to have the majority to then actually move the needle and change the trajectory. Everything's about trajectory shifts, right? Reagan, whether it was, Obama and Obamacare, like these big shifts about which direction are you sending the country. And I think that's, we've got to win and win minds and hearts. And we only do that if we go set the goalposts where we want them to be and then actually go towards those goalposts, instead of reacting to what Democrats put out there, instead of reacting to what liberals put out there. We should put out what we believe and put it out there and explain it, whether it's healthcare, and I'm sure we'll get to that in a minute, so I won't dwell, or whether it's the border, right? Instead of being on defense on the border and talking about this, we need labor and we're fighting between the Chamber of Commerce, whatever. Well, we should just talk about what a sovereign nation has with a secure border and why that means something for people. That there are 400 dead bodies in South Texas right now. That there are people in body trailers because of what the cartels are doing. That there are little girls getting abused because we don't secure our border. That we're getting our ass kicked by China because we're allowing them to move fentanyl up through our southern border while we get killed and our kids die in opioid overdoses in Dallas, Texas, Austin, Texas, and New York City because we don't secure our border. And instead of exporting the rule of law to the Western Hemisphere and having a strong Western Hemisphere 21st century Monroe Doctrine to kick China's butt, we're letting them kick our butt. Don't do that. Go on offense and say that we're for that. And the American people will say, well, hell yeah, I want to beat the Chinese. I don't want to keep having them beat us. Go on offense about what that means for the American people. what that means for our kids and grandkids. Talk about spending in a way that actually matters. Spending isn't about $30 trillion. You guys are some of the smartest minds around in business and in commerce here in DFW. What does $30 trillion mean even to you? We don't know. Tell me how you even count to 30 trillion. But let's actually talk about what funding bureaucrats, funding tyrants in Washington, to have an OSHA that can come shut down your business because you don't want to force your employee to get vaccinated. Let's talk about freedom. Let's talk about what we can create in this country if we get government out of the way and allow people to prosper according to their own devices. Let's talk about healthcare like John wants to talk about it. Let's talk about the things in energy. Instead of on our heels, let's be on offense about what a flourishing society looks like with clean burning natural gas and nuclear power while China is pumping out 43 new coal-fired plants. Go on offense instead of being on defense. Sorry.
This is exactly what we're talking about. Go for the win of something and really get after them. And we can win.
You know, listening to Chip and Pete puts in mind that I think one of our partners, frankly, in the 2010 election that from the NRCC side, Pete managed so brilliantly, was actually Barack Obama and the Congress. I mean, they made those teaching moments possible. I think the Democrats are doing that now. They did it in Virginia. They helped bring home their misdeeds and their malefaction was something people couldn't ignore anymore. But I have a question from Dr. Andrew Mills in the audience that is germane to what you were just referring to, Chip in particular. Do you, in terms of healthcare, do you agree that patient choice and empowerment is important for healthcare reform? And if so, how can we facilitate that? And I'd love for you to consider that in the context of the healthcare contract with America that John is wisely promoting.
Yeah, well, I've really enjoyed working with John on what he's working on, and I'm heading up the Republican Study Committee Healthcare Task Force, working with my colleagues on that. This is important to me. Many of you know I'm a cancer survivor. I was declared cancer-free, I guess, 10 years ago in October after getting Hodgkin's lymphoma in the summer of 2011. And I had a 2-year-old son and a 3-month-old daughter, and came out of the other end of that cancer-free. But it renewed my spirit to serve publicly to make sure we could preserve a healthcare system. John mentioned earlier, I'm in Congress, okay? That means different things to different people in terms of being a good thing or a bad thing. But in general, right, that means I'm at least halfway successful in the world. And I'm in Congress, and I can't get a healthcare plan that would send me back to MD Anderson. I can't. I'm on Obamacare as a member of Congress. I can't go to MD Anderson on my current plan, the hospital that I went to 10 years ago to save my life when I had cancer. Now, I've found a way to fix that problem, but a lot of Americans can't, right? That's the problem here. And this is what I don't think we talk about enough, about stranding the American people without access to health care. Most of you have been successful and you're blessed. You can find a way to get health care if you need it, most of you. But there are people here who are working and serving us here, people on Capitol Hill, myself, that potentially stuck because you're sitting there on Obamacare because all we've done is allow them to win on the name of coverage. It is not about coverage, it is about care. And if we don't find a way to go to the point that you're talking about and the question raised, to return to doctors and patients and take this away, with all due respect to anyone in the room that works in the healthcare industry, take this away from big healthcare. Take this away from the massive amounts of profits that are getting poured in through crony capitalism to insurance companies, hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, and God bless pharmaceutical companies that saved my life. But we are pouring billions, trillions of dollars into these companies. And we are not allowing doctors and patients to have the ownership of care instead of insurance and government bureaucrats telling them what to do. We win when we talk about people being able to go get care and having the ability to go to a doctor. I had a breakfast this morning, I'll stop talking, with a DPC doctor in Austin, Texas, and David Ballot with the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Greg Sindelar's here, the new and incoming head of the TPPF. And we talked about DPC. There are 2,000 DPC clinics across the country now, direct primary care, where people can go pay cash. and they can actually see the prices, and they can call on a cell phone and access the care of their choice. It's not highfalutin, fancy concierge care. There's nothing wrong with concierge care, but you brand it properly. You've just got direct access to a doctor, right? We need to empower patients with cash and health savings accounts to go get your doctors. And it doesn't have to just be primary care. It can be specialty care, like the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, where you can get a $10,000 knee replacement instead of a $40,000 insurance-funded knee replacement. I'll stop talking now.
You know, I think everything Chip said I completely agree with, but I'm going to just tell you, we've killed the Affordable Care Act. That's why they want to go to Medicare for all. It is the Affordable Care Act would not allow any person to go to a children's hospital. You cannot go to any children's hospital if you're on Obamacare. It's because the reimbursement is so small. But I prepared my phone, and I would encourage anybody here to do the same, where they would go and look at Medicare for All. Medicare for All, the previous version as well as this one, expressly says that the federal government will not, an individual shall be eligible for services and sports described in this section, and it's anybody in America, but it forbids any private health care coverage or employer coverage from being paid for. It's illegal to have it in the country. And this is why at least Brandon is against this, because he knows, I'm sorry, President Biden, he knows every hospital in this country will go belly up because it's reimbursed at 40% of the actual charges. We have to understand this is the coup de grace. This is what they want. They want single payer system across the board. And so we have to be smart enough to know what they're doing and be able to attack it at its source. And it says it right here in the bill. And these are the things we got to do. So we've killed Obamacare. They want Medicare for all. We've got a lot of work to do.
All right, this is a question about your colleagues. And Nan, you may have an answer as well. I hope you'll be as honest as you can. Many, many bad things have happened to families and people under Obamacare. The woman with a brain tumor, she can't afford the MRI scan because she's got a $6,000 deductible. The family with a child with cancer, they need specialized care. They go through the open season, pick the one plan that has the right doctor, the right clinic, and 2 weeks later, that doctor is out of the network. There are many, many examples of this. So here's my question. Why do we go for almost a decade, and when your party had the ability, both in the House and the Senate, to have hearings on these tragedies and make the public at large aware of them, why didn't that happen?
It's important to note that the one biggest issue in the Republican plan was whether a person would be on an individual or group policy. There were other problems. An individual policy is what President Obama did in his bill. And it means that your deductible, generally speaking, for almost any size family, is $6,000 to $8,000. If you are in a group plan and allowed to do that, you're in the $1,000 to $2,000 range for a family. We did not allow that because Paul Ryan wanted to take the $1 trillion like the Democrats had taken $800 billion out of Medicare, which is why Medicare recipients can't find their doctors because the money was gone. He wanted to take, Paul Ryan took $1 trillion out. And so that's where then when it got scored, 30 million people would not choose to get a health care plan with an $8,000 deductible. It really gets simple, John, and you know this. It gets simple with what other things compete against someone's interest to use all the money. And we allowed Paul Ryan to do that, and we allowed that bill to CBO to kill us off its own weight.
I'll answer it slightly differently. You know, I was Senator Cruz's chief of staff in 13 and 14. Then I was in the AG's office. I was at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. We were talking about healthcare policy when we saw what unfolded in January 17, where unfortunately Congress, with Republican control, didn't step up when we had the opportunity to advance something and sell it. What I would say is that, John, you said it standing up here a minute ago. We didn't, over the last 2 decades, develop something to put together and get Republicans on the same page and go sell it so they can confidently go explain it to the American people. So you asked the question, why didn't we haul people in front of the committees and show stories and demonstrate what the reality is, positive or negative? And it's because Republicans get caught up in numbers and things like trillions and 30 trillion and this and that and plans and how things work, as you said, instead of talking about people and care. And we allowed coverage to govern what we were going to do. We've been on defense since Hillary Care, right? Hillary Care comes forward, and what do? Well, we're going to kill it. Government-run health care. We put the big chart up. Well, we did a good job killing it. But then what? Then we just keep going and keep moving. Then by the late aughts, then we get to Obamacare. Then Obamacare passes. Then we got to kill Obamacare. And I understand why. I wanted to kill Obamacare. But now we're just talking about them. And now they've won because they're talking about coverage. But coverage isn't care. And so we don't put a face on it. We don't humanize it. And we also don't talk about what's actually working in the only thing left in the market that's actually a market. It's not insurance-run healthcare. Mostly, there's a little bit in there. It's mostly where you're seeing all this great creative stuff happening, where you've got health sharing ministries that pop up, where you've got, you know, entities popping up where you can get different kinds of care if the insurance, regulatory bodies allow them. It's allowing direct primary care to work. It's allowing things like Surgery Center of Oklahoma. It's all of the things that, and there's people here that we talk about here at the table where there's entrepreneurial activity that's actually working right now and saving healthcare. Right? But we don't talk about that. We don't haul those. We talk about the examples where, one last example, my good friend of mine whose dad got cancer, and he was stuck without care because he lost it under Obamacare. So why don't we put that story out there? How did he get care? Through a health sharing ministry where he was able to go get it and then go get insurance, and we got him into MD Anderson, and he's still alive today. Why don't we talk about that? Because it was Obamacare that took him off of coverage. And we should get those stories out and so people can see them.
Okay, Nan, you were there.
Yes.
If Obamacare were a Republican plan, if Republicans had done this and the Democrats controlled the health committees and could hold hearings, how often would they be holding hearings on what's wrong with the Republican plan?
Well, we all know. Yeah, I mean, having been, what the Democrats do, and we all know this, but they make everything emotional. You know, everything is anecdotal. They will pick one story out of, millions that are more representative, but they'll pick the one story that they know will be repeated over and over again. What makes me so proud to be privileged to work in some capacity to promote the work of the Goodman Institute and to help be a voice in the public with these incredible representatives, Roy and Sessions and their colleagues, is that with these men and with their capabilities, we can both create the policies that are proven, that we know will work, and through the leadership of people like Chip and Pete, translate them into the messages that will resonate so that we can take full advantage of the circumstances in the field, the opportunities that we have now. And I know we're about to run on our time limit. I want to thank Representatives Sessions and Roy for joining us this evening, and to thank obviously John Goodman for his 40 years of leadership in making sure that when we do gain office, we can do the right thing by the American people.
Do we have time for 30 seconds here on healthcare?
Yes, sir.
Just,
You bet.
All I want to say is on the positive side, the needle has moved a lot in the last 2 years because of the work of John, because of the work of some more other organizations out there and people who actually get it. We are now starting to accumulate those stories, put together a database of those stories that we can put forward, accumulate the positive examples of what we can do, and develop a plan. When we put forward the RSC plan 2 years ago that has a lot of the elements of what John's got in the contract here, you finally got some people in DC saying, maybe the Republicans have a plan after all. Right. We're getting there, we're getting it structured, and I think things are moving in the right direction, and it's a lot to do with John's good work, so thank you.
Thank you. John, I think, were you going to?
No, I'm fine. Not going to defend yourself?
Mike?
Yeah.
Mike.
All right. Well, how about a hand for our great panel right here? How about this? Stand up, watch the water, and stand up, take a bow. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Representative Sessions, Representative Roy. Thank you. Thank you kindly. Here you go. Nan, you can, here, let me help you down, or Representative Sessions will help you. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, wait, don't leave, don't leave, don't leave. Your babysitter will wait. My job and what I do is I sell stuff, okay? I'm an auction business, I sell stuff. A lot of people ask me what the coolest thing I've sold. I'll tell you the last thing I sold it 2 days ago. I sold a phaser rifle from Star Trek. James T. Kirk used it on episode 1. Just sold that. What do you think that's something like? That's essentially a plastic toy gun, right? Plastic toy gun. What do you think something like that went for? Anybody know? Anybody know? A couple of guesses? Shout something. What do you think? Who ruined it by saying $1 million? Thank you. It went for $615,000. Yeah, $615,000. So my job is to sell stuff and get the most money for it. Now, I'm going to tell you, none of this happens by accident. Those tablecloths don't get there by accident. The valet parking people don't just magically appear. This dinner doesn't just get here. The representatives don't show up. Nothing just happens by accident. Everything costs just a teeny bit of money. And I tell you what, we have the Goodman Institute commitment cards. Everyone see it? Pick it up right now. It's not an auction card. You don't have to wave it for me. I'm not going to call on you. But pick it up right now. Pick it up and wave it at me. Wave it at me. I got 3 people waving these cards at me. That's it. Pick up the card, wave it at me. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a commitment here. There you go. Thank you, Nan. She's waving. We need a commitment here. A couple of things. If you're watching from the live stream, you have a QR code you can use. And also, you do too here, folks. If you take your John Goodman pamphlet, you flip it over, there's a QR. You just scan it with your phone. And you can make a commitment. You can make a financial commitment that's going to move this organization forward, the ideals, the core American values forward, and get them to the people who can make decisions. Now, who wouldn't be for that? I know I am, and I know you are too. So, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Don't forget, you don't have to see that other amount there. That other amount, you can give way more than $100,000. All right? Just want to let you know, you don't have to limit to 100K. You can go way up. And I would put it on your credit card and get some points. So what the heck, you know? Might as well stay at the Hyatt for free for the next 7 or 8 years, right? So that would be kind of cool. So anyway, fill out this. I need your name and address and your email and phone. I absolutely need that, okay? We promise we won't bombard you with stuff. But you need to support the organization to get these ideas and get the news out. One thing that I was surprised about, I wasn't surprised about any of the success in Texas. Not surprised one bit. Was anyone surprised? No. But what I was surprised about all the awards. Does anyone hear about that in any news source at all? Does anyone hear about it? I never heard of it. You know, I got Governor Abbott putting all these bowls and trophies on his bookshelf. It's got to be amazing in his office. I've never even knew it. Never even knew that Texas. I'm from New York. Never going back, by the way. I'm from New York and never going back. But it's so great to hear those things. But again, that doesn't happen by accident. We don't lure companies like Tesla to Texas or Ameritrade, where I live out in Southlake, or Fidelity. Those companies just don't go, well, what do you think? We're going to go to Texas. You got to get those companies here, and those are the ideals. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm in the auction auction business. So to add some anonymity to this, once you put down your $100,000, you don't want anyone to know, you can fold this card up nice and tidy. Okay, maybe we can have some of the ladies from table 30 come out and pick these up. But I want to know, ladies and gentlemen, if you wave your card, how many people, you don't have to, how many people, just raise your hand, can give something? Anybody raise your card up. There's somebody who can give something. There's somebody else. There's somebody who can give something else. There's somebody can give something. Oh my gosh, Nan's giving something. She's waving her card. Anybody else can give anything to not make this to happen again. There's somebody right here. There's, are you signaling me? So, all right, maybe he's going to give something in a second. How about something else? Anybody else? This does not happen by accident. We need to have this event more. I'd like to do this event with 3 times as many people. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you like to do that next year, 6 months from now, with twice as many people, meeting twice as many people who care for the American core values? I sure would. So ladies and gentlemen, get those cards in right now. Make a conscious decision. What was this event? Not what this event was worth to you. What were the ideas worth to you? What's America worth to you? That's what I want to hear about. That's what you're making commitment about. Let's get the cards in. Let's get them written down. And ladies and gentlemen, I think that wraps it up. Does anybody have... There's a question. Yes, sir. Hold on. Let's get it. Here we go, Larry.
Listen, I will match everyone who gives $250 or more. I will match it. That's how much I believe in this organization. But you have to give it tonight. You have to put it down on the card. Say, anybody who will give $250 or more, I will match $250.
So your
okay?
So your $1,000 becomes $1,250, basically.
That's exactly right.
That's exactly right. And folks, I just want to mention one other person. James Coutulas, where is he? Is he here? Where is he? Is he still here? There he is right there. There he is. I tell you what, here's what he's going to do. Ladies and gentlemen, just to get everybody in the Christmas and spiritual giving mode, James, ready for this, has donated digital collectibles named LGB Coin. That's kind of cool. We're not sure really what cryptocurrency is, but he knows. He's a smart guy. And ready for this, he's going to give $100,000 worth to the Goodman Institute, which should be worth $1 bazillion tomorrow. How about that? No, that's great. James, how about a hand for him and his generosity right there? Give me a thumbs up for you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Excellent. So get those cards in. I think we have some more, again, some great fellowship to happen right out there in that lobby. So get the cards in. We'll come pick them up from you and continue to enjoy the evening. I think we have 30 solid minutes of great conversation left. Maybe finish up some of the delicious desserts and say hello to everybody. And thank you very much. Ladies, am I forgetting anything else? All right. How about a big hand for yourselves? How about a big hand for the John Goodman Institute? And thank you for joining us this evening. We're very grateful. Thank you.